All right, so now I feel like working on this. What do we got to do? I don't remember. I'm now a Porsche owner. This is for some plebeian to do. Let it be fixed. I wonder how many people are going to be like, Casey, I don't like your sense of humor. You're mocking Porsche owners. Well, yeah, it's funny. What's up, people? Okay, today we're going to do timing belts and a water pump and put the cam housing back on a 944 to see if normal people can have fun in sports cars nowadays like they allegedly could in the 1960s when people could work at them. Or do you have to go to a magic Porsche dealer where some special snob with special tools made in Germany by a little man in Stuttgart will charge you an arm and a leg and a fortune? I think we can do it together. But anyway, I want to show you the water pump. It really is just a cast aluminum piece, a place to put a thermostat. It's got one O-ring in here. It's got some bearings and a seal just so this thing can spin and pump water. Wow, that's the magic right there. Big deal. But we actually have to get to it, which is going to be a pain in the butt. And obviously, here's the timing belts. I kind of want to wrap around myself like they're ammo chains, like Rambo or something. So you get extra points if you do that. But here's the kicker. And I'm going to be perfectly honest. There's certain things when working on a 944 that are frankly really easy and kind of fun. Like taking off the plastic cover for the timing belts. That's kind of neat. That's kind of easy. It's like working on Legos or constructs or I don't know, something like that. No problem. But it gets a little bit pickier and a little bit annoying when you have to start getting down to the water pump and hoping none of the studs are corroded. That's when you start having to hold your tongue right, use the right tools, and break it loose. And most importantly, obviously, you keep all the timing. You got to have everything right and tensioned, and we'll get to that. That's not a big deal. But the one thing I was dreading today was busting loose this big bolt here. Come on down here and look right on the flywheel, because I have to remove these two pulleys here to be able to remove just this plastic cover to get the water pump off. So obviously got a 6-point here. You don't want to use a 12-point because it's going to be a lot of torque, and I've got to pop that loose. Now here's why that's annoying. That's been on there for a long time, and it's probably going to use a ton of torque. And that is connected directly to the front of the crankshaft. The crankshaft is connected to the clutch, connected to the prop shaft, to the transaxle, to the wheels. And to break this loose, this spins so easily. Look down here. And keep in mind, all the valves are up, the cam's off. So I can turn this just with my hand. That's how free that is. So there's nothing stopping the torque. And they make a tool where you remove the starter from underneath the car, bolt it in place, it's got little teeth, and it jams the flywheel. Now that's a great tool, but it costs money, and that takes time and effort, and I really don't have time for that. So how am I going to do this when I don't have that tool and I'm too lazy to buy it and wait for it on something God knows if I'll ever use again? Well, the first thing I tested with my camera guy was stick it in 5th gear, where you have the change of the torque ratios there, put the parking brake on, hold the brakes, and see if I can bust it loose that way. Now the problem is, there's a lot of elasticity in the driveline for that, from everything from the gears to the micro twisting of everything from the crankshaft to the prop shaft to the drive, everything. Not to mention it could slip. And you're torquing your clutch doing that at the same time too, and if you have the original rubber-centered clutch, you might end up putting more torque in it and busting it doing that. So I started to do it and I'm like, I don't really like this, okay? I also marked the flywheel really well so I know I get it back to the correct timing so I don't accidentally put it together wrong. And I was really not looking forward to this, and I started doing it not on the camera because I figured there'd be lots of obscenities and it'd take a lot of time. But then I did something with my camera guy. It was beautiful. So first and foremost, had this on there, just a straight bar, no ratcheting, nothing wacky like that, just to get it on in place. Where is it? Get on there. So head on, and I knew we were going to need a breaker, so this is the aluminum handle to the jack. And I had this nice pry bar here, and I just brought it in here, and you can put it, there's big lugs, 4 big lugs in the center of this pulley. And if you have a nice square profiled pry bar, you can get that in there and focus the energy directly there, and lo and behold, it broke loose fine. Of course, I already pre-loosened it, and actually, forgive me, we had this big pry bar. So how it worked was, my camera guy was holding it, and then I put this on there, brought it out a little bit, grabbed onto the pry bar too, and we went pop, broke it loose, with no torque going through anything else. And I got really excited, and it started hitting me, even though this is a 944, and all the people in those fancy magazines that tell you how much cars are worth, like don't realize this is worth anything, and it's just all you young people out there and you home mechanics that like 940 and they haven't figured it out. Suddenly I am feeling what it's like to own a Porsche, and I got really excited and I wanted to take off my shirt and wear this. Yes. Now that's how you be a Porsche owner that can break his own bolts loose. Don't touch me, peasants. All right, so now I feel like working on this. What do we got to do? I don't remember. I'm now a Porsche owner. This is for some plebeian to do. Let it be fixed. Ho, 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 ho. I'm back. I have to do manual labor. That's dumb. All right, come here. We're gonna break this loose with my bare hands. Oh, that was easy. I don't need a socket. I'm a Porsche owner. I use my fingers. Boom. Yes. Oh, look at that bolt coming out of there. That is satisfying. Can you even see it? No, look at this. I'm using my fingers. Oh man. We don't need a lifetime warranty. Oh, I dropped it. That was dumb. Pick it up, peasant. Okay, here we are. No problem. We'll just edit that out. All right. So allegedly this needs a gear puller, and then some people are like, oh, it just comes right off. Yeah, no, that's not gonna work. Okay, so I need to get a gear puller, and that'll probably be boring. Or let's look in my old toolbox. Come on over, y'all. So this is my toolbox, and this is what it looks like after years and years and years of letting Genius Garage students beat up. It's actually organized now, though. That's nice. Nope. 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 No. Wait, I know. It's in my old rolling tool bench. Well, heckin' gosh. Where is my gear pulley set? Casey, why aren't your things organized? If you're such a good mechanic, you're supposed to organize it. Every day after work, I would hose down all of my tools, and I was amazing at my life and doing all this. I'm like, well, clearly you didn't work so much that, I don't know. What's up, peasants? So down here, if you look, I got a gear puller on there. Now this gear puller is ready to go, but I want to show you how I had that. I could not find my original one. I've used it on a bunch of steering wheels, anything where there is a taper fit that has to pop off. It's been in a long time, you need it. But this is my favorite set. It's a slide hammer kit, and in it, it has things you need to do gear pullers. So for instance, this, you can thread on and have these fingers to grab it. And it's real easy. It's like working with Legos or any like kid's toy, like back in the day. And my ultimate favorite tool is this vice grip, and it's got this nice thing you can grab onto, and this threads onto the slide hammer, like so. And it's just so much fun, because then you just gotta go boom, and it's just, I don't know, I swear this is like the most satisfying tool to use there is. But there's no room inside that thing. But fortunately, I had the flatter part of the gear puller, and I was able to get it in here. You couldn't use the teeth, but I had these two big bolts that I put behind the the gear and threaded tight, and then I've got this, and I can just barely turn it between the fan shroud. Now, from what I've heard, this won't require too much effort to get off there, because some people said they could like slide it or gently pry it off, and if you can do that, this is certainly something that frankly barely needs a gear puller. So I am going to cross my fingers if that's the case, because I can barely even get in here to efficiently do it. So right now it's starting to snug up. This might be easier from the bottom, I don't know, we'll see. But oh, I don't want to lay on the dirty floor. I am a Porsche owner. I wonder how many people are gonna be like, Casey, I don't like your sense of humor. You're mocking Porsche owners. Well, yeah, it's funny. Take a joke. They're called jokes. As Ricky Gervais said, they're just jokes. They can't hurt you. We're all going to die soon, and there's no sequel. All right, so we better fix this car and then go enjoy it. Is it off yet? Come on off of there. You guys. Okay, it's getting somewhere, I think. It seems to be coming off. Now the bolt, I've got the bolt in there, and this is pushing against the hardened bolt, and it's threaded a long way in against the crankshaft, so it'll work on it. However, the bolt is only out by approximately 1/8 of an inch. So I have to remember that once I use up that travel, or that area, it'll bottom out on the crankshaft, and any force that I put into it, tightening it, will just go into destroying this tool and busting my knuckles. So I gotta remember that, even though I'm distracted with the camera. But I can tell this is tightening down very easily, so I'm really wondering if that'll just about come off. Can I just thread it with, oh man, I'm even just threading this with my fingers right now. Oh yeah, this is totally coming off. Okay, so I'm gonna disconnect the two bolts. Notice I said they were just finger tight. As you can see, I used some pretty hefty bolts with some pretty hefty washers. They're all flat, they're not lock washers. And these are some big wide bolts, and they locked in there nicely. You do have to be mindful, not necessarily when you're working on this, but oftentimes in the past, you know, if you're trying to pull off a pulley or a gear that's just very dainty and weak, you know, you can't put a lot of pressure on it. You can bend and break things doing this. And when you're trying to pull something off a tapered fit that's been on there for years, and when you're trying to pull off something that's been on there for years, you have to put a ton of torque on a gear puller. And that can break loose kind of explosively. It's not really gonna hurt you, but I've certainly banged fingers and broken things in time or two. So you just wanna be thinking of what you're doing is going to work and you're not overdoing your whatever it is that's going on. Oh, now look at this. Okay, so what I just pulled off was only this gear, not that one. That one looks like it's gonna be a jerk. Great, and I thought I was cool. All right, so where is the flashlight? I'm gonna take a look at this. And again, you guys, I haven't done this in years and years and years. I forgot about it, and I'm not looking at a manual because frankly, I wanna prove a point that this is not the hardest thing in the world to do, and you can do it too. Because I really wanna see people out there enjoying their sports cars. Because I think sports cars, especially vintage ones, have really just become about nothing but the money nowadays. And that's just really sad. It takes away from enjoying sports cars for all the good reasons. Wow, that's gonna be a jerk. There's not much room in there. Darn, I really thought that was gonna work. Huh. All right, so I'm gonna come back to y'all at this. Or maybe we should just keep recording. You wanna see me curse, right? And hurt myself. I don't know if any of those holes are threaded. I don't think they are. Yeah, all those holes appear to be straight, so they're not threaded. I can't just put in something there. I could grab this, but I don't really know if this is just like a washer or a spacer. And then I would have to get in and grab that from behind, and this covers on it. I've got another trick, but I don't really want to do it on the camera because I don't feel like having people yell at me on camera. Oh, Casey, you're just a terrible mechanic. There's another technique, and it's probably not going to work on this, but it has worked on some things. So check this out. On any kind of crankshaft, and I'm not necessarily saying a Porsche, but we'll say it's an old motorcycle or something, there's a certain amount of end play this way and that. So if you've got something you have to pop off, and it doesn't require moving much, it just has to move like a couple thousandths of an inch and it's loose. Sometimes you can take something, if the case is strong enough behind it, wedge something metallic and non-compressible inside it to where you've taken up the play there, and then with a hammer, smack the end of whatever the crankshaft is, and it pops loose and the thing pops off and that'll come off. That works in a lot of circumstances. Not this, but that came to mind for a moment. Casey, you're a dumb mechanic. You don't know how to just do this. Oh. And by the way, I'm not mocking like, oh, look at this. Oh, look down there, you guys. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm not mocking everybody, but like the truth of the matter is mechanics and shops and dealerships and service shops, they're all horrible to each other. They do nothing but talk smack about everybody. Watch this. This was literally sliding right off. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. I'm going to set this down. Does it have a magnet? Stick, I say. You miserable peasants, I said stick. I decree it to be so. Get in there. Get in there. Nope. Okay, now come over here. It's doing like a Chinese finger trap, I guess. Okay, come on off of there. Come on off of there. Ooh, almost. Yes! Suckers. All right, so here's the other pulley. This is the one that drives the actual timing belt for the camshaft. As you can see, there's a bunch of gunk on the back. Actually, there's quite a lot of gunk in there. So this is a nice opportunity to clean it up. If you look carefully here in the light at it, you can see the pulley's, had its better days. You can see little kind of bumps here on the raised surface of the teeth where the hardening starts to get beat up over the ears. It's still in good enough shape. But as an example, if this were an aluminum pulley, it would have been anodized, and the anodization is a harder surface. So for instance, on a race car, and come with me, let's see if we can find a race car pulley. I'm going to show you what I'm thinking here. This one suffers from that occasionally. Where do we have race car pulleys? Come on back here. Here we go. here's one that I cut. I needed some metal. So this is aluminum, and this is probably would have been used for the drive side on a crankshaft or flange to run an oil pump. And if you look at see how it's real shiny? It has those same pits. The difference is this is aluminum. And it's real silver and shiny here and slightly gold or a little tan on the inside. Well, the anodization, the hard anodization has worn off on the outside. So if you have an aluminum pulley of this nature, which is similar to what's in the 944, and the anodization is worn off, it's just gonna eat itself up because the aluminum's pretty soft. Just an extra piece of information for you guys. But I think the 944 is just fine. That's a much harder steel. So even though it's a little shiny and pitted, that's just showing its age. Keep in mind that it has gone through about 100,000 miles of driving. So what else has to be removed from this doggone thing? Man, everything. These pulleys too, huh? That's annoying. Okay, well, I tell you guys what. I am wanting lunch, so I'm gonna get lunch and come back to this. Do you think they'll serve me for free at the restaurant if they know I'm a Porsche owner? See you guys. So I said to the waitress, I'll have your most expensive thing stuffed with your second most expensive thing. Good Porsche tip. Anyway, so you guys, I removed the pulleys here for the balance shafts. That's here and down there. This is a big displacement 4-cylinder with inherent vibrations, so it has balance shafts in it, which actually I think might have been designed by Mitsubishi or something, but I don't remember. Anyway, these are a little tricky. You gotta hold them well without buggering them up. Which is tricky if you don't have the right tool. I don't know what the right tool is, but it's not something I had. And I don't even want to tell you how I did it because I don't want a bunch of people to try it and be unsuccessful at it and screw the thing up. So find a smarter way than I probably did to do it, but I was able to do it reasonably well. One of the things that I did, just in case, one, I marked this, i.e. top, like it's the top one, not the bottom. And I put 2 lines and I memorized where all the marks were and take pictures, okay? So it's very important when you get into this because I'm not saying this car is. It would make sense that both these 2 pulleys are identical, but I've been around the block a time or 2 in my life and I found out that everything is ridiculous on all cars on the entire planet. So you take nothing for granted and that's how you're generally successful. So, and I'm also keeping them apart from each other in a way that makes sense in my head for it to go. So now that all the pulleys are removed, this plastic cover comes right off, allegedly. Yay, there it is. That's pretty filthy. I'm gonna have to clean it up. Now, some of y'all mentioned that we have this tube here, which connects to the airbox. It's supposed to vacuum all the dust out. But what other people said is, yeah, it pulls the dust out, but then it lets new stuff come in. So maybe that's where this dirt is. Also, if you look in here, you'll notice that from the engine timing belt, that timing belt is rubbing this a little bit right here. So I'm gonna wanna watch and see why that is. Were there bolts missing and this was loose? Was the timing belt loose and flopping? Gonna have to find out, but it's important to look for telltale signs of things that are stupid. And this is clearly broken down here, which can be glued. And that's something that's annoying is these metal inserts that you thread into, if they corrode too much of the bolt, it's so easy to break the bonds loose of how it's in the plastic. So that's kind of a problem with things like this. So before you put it back together, it doesn't hurt to put a smidge of grease or never sees paste on it, something like that, just so you have a better chance of getting it actually apart in the future. So I'll get this bunch of malarkey out of the way. All right, so let's take a look, you guys. What do we got here? Well, clearly the water pump's there. Also, I notice there's a washer right here, and I'm believing a pulley goes here. I'm gonna leave that washer there. That might be a spacer or shim there on purpose. I wanna remember that. When you do timing belts on like a Ferrari 308 or 328, there's a lot of shims and washers for all that stuff, and mechanics that are somewhat lazy, not that into it, or newbies go taking things apart, not realizing that Ferrari has like lots of shims putting stuff together. So you gotta be really precise with that, otherwise bad things happen. Just a world of the wise. So it is time to take off the water pump. Wasserpumpe. I don't know what German is for water pump. All I know it's Wasser. So let's yank this thing off of there. Hey camera guys, is the sound working?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, that's not a ratcheting one. Okay, so pulley's coming off. Shouldn't be a big deal. I am going to leave this bolt in the pulley so I don't forget about it. Leave it right there. You guys will find a method to your madness. Typically when I used to work on Ferraris, there's a whole lot of things that come apart when you do a service on one of those. Lots of bolts, lots of shims, lots of everything. So typically on the racks, you might start from lower to higher and you put things in order. So as you first take things apart, they go on lower shelves, and as you work your way up, you go up high. So you have to have levels. And that's an intelligent way to remember what order you took it apart in. And then it's just a matter of kind of reversing the order when you're putting things back together. To be honest, over on that table, I'm not doing that well. It's not being a terrible example, but I do remember where things go pretty well. And I kind of have this weird thing about me where, like, so for instance, the Top Gun bike, if you guys were watching that, I had a person help me take that apart one day, and then he had a little time and he was going to help out more. And I just kind of took it for granted that he knew where everything was and he was going to come back and help more. And then he didn't. And then I had to find everything. So, and it really wasn't a big deal. And it's kind of weirdly fun to be like, okay, where does this go? Where does this go? So I guess that's where my goofiness comes into play. All right, so I learned that there's really only one length of bolt that comes out of this thing, save for the really long one over here, which is easy. But, you know, here's the reason why you got to pay attention to bolt sizes. You can have a bolt that's too short, thread into something, and you think it's okay. But if it's only like 1 or 2 threads into it, and you're going to torque it down, you're going to pull those threads right out. And then you can have a bolt that goes in that the bolt will bottom out in the hole before it's tightened down. If you go trying to tighten it down and look at it, you'll strip out all the threads. So that's why it's really important. Right now, to be honest, I'm being kind of cocky and just doing it because I've done this a lot. So I'm saying that because I want you all to know that you do need to pay attention. So there's ways to keep your bolts organized. My suggestion is draw a picture of the pattern in cardboard or something, and then poke the holes and put the bolts exactly where they go. There's simple ways to remember with no problem so you don't screw it up. So I got all the hardware out and then just popped it loose. And these little guys, these are actually places to pry it. That's what that's for. And there's another one over here, which I'll go ahead and just use to exemplify my point, so you can pry it loose. Isn't that nice? A lot of cars and a lot of things don't have any sort of accommodation for the real world and prying on it, you car makers and you terrible engineers who don't know anything about working on cars, which actually, old guy, old man rant coming up right now. If you are a young engineer and you're going through school, industry thinks it's really important that you work on cars. They do. And it matters on your resume because idiots who never worked on cars or anything else don't know how things come apart and go together in the real world. And then you make sucky engineers. And then anybody who works on it knows you suck and they're cursing your name from afar, even if they don't know it. So don't be a sucky engineer in the future and learn to work on your own cars. You'll be a much better engineer. Okay. Maybe you'll change the future for the better by realizing the mistakes of the past. Ooh, profound. So here's the old water pump. I mean, it's sealed and it works just fine. I don't know if I really need to replace it, but it is one of those things like, while you're at it, you might as well replace it. That's also how they get you for more money. So, I don't know, it is what it is. But in this circumstance, the reason I'm replacing this, and I wasn't gonna do it, but one, I like this car and I wanna keep it and I wanna enjoy it. And I don't really wanna work on it again for a long time. And two, I thought it would be valuable to show you guys how to do this. So, that's why I'm doing more work than I think I need to right now. So here's the thermostat. There, it's in line. That's kind of neat how they designed that. And it's got a circlip that holds it. So I'm going to have to get those circlip ring pliers to pop that out. So I'll go do that. But take a look at the front of the engine real quick. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to clean that up, make sure the gasket surfaces are clean. I'm going to clean up any sort of oil residue that I can easily get to, and some of this corrosion, just make it look nicer before I come back in here and work on it. Ho ho, what's up, peasants? Yes, so I didn't really need those bolts because the new water pump came with new bolts. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. All right, here we go. Obviously they're plated and they look really nice. And I think I do have anti-seize paste around here somewhere. I saw it yesterday. Hooray, there it is. Like I was a good mechanic or something. Okay, I want to put the water pump on. Now something I did, here's the brand new gasket that came with it. And if you have flawlessly machined surfaces and a really good gasket with really good consistency, you don't need to put any kind of sealer on it. But this is old and I'm a nut and I felt like being experimental. So I sprayed the copper spray gasket on it because it'll seal up micro stuff, but it does it good for, like, you know, heat distribution and stuff. So just a nice thin layer, which I think is good. And I want to experiment with this. So That's why I did it. But anyway, if you put silicone on something like this, you just need the tiniest thin layer. You don't need a thick bunch of crap, because then you're gonna have silicone splooging out everywhere. Casey, why are you using the word splooge? Because I thought it was appropriate in the circumstance. Okay, anyway, looking at my water pump one last time, make sure there's nothing weird in it. Not as important as your oil system, but important no less. You don't want wacky things banging around in your water thing. Also, I'm gonna one last look just to look at the mating surfaces. They look nice. That's on there. Everything's really dry and clean. That's important. You want it to be dry and clean. And that gasket I'm putting on while it's still slightly tacky, so that should also be really good for sealing. Look at that. Oh my gosh. Let's put on the long one that went over here just because I'll remember. Also, you'll notice these are not split washers. They're just flat washers. There are many things that you find don't need any kind of lock washers. Flat washer, they do just fine. There's been studies done where, you know, split washers do absolutely no good and things hold down with flat washers better. When in doubt, a flat washer is always better to hold down torque and distribute pressure. But I will say, and I'll argue this to the death, that there are plenty of reasons where you need a lock washer or split washer. And the reasons I know they work is because many of them, once you put them on, you about ruin them getting them off because they dig in. So I will leave it up to you all as to what it is that you need something like that on. I've found they're necessary on things like holding tail light on a motorcycle frame that vibrates a lot or whatever. Yeah, you put that on with a flat washer, that thing's not staying on there. So for all you super nerds that like to argue and be like, split washers don't do anything. You just need a flat one. Yeah, well, okay, they exist for a reason, okay? And you're partially right. But just because you're partially right and you learn some sciencey stuff doesn't mean you can throw that out there in every circumstance. Because then it just makes you sound like a smug, book smart person that's never done anything in the real world. Ooh, Casey, you said that with a little angst. It's almost like that annoys you or something, and you've had experiences with that. Yeah, I have. All the time. All the time. Oh, Casey, you suck at everything. Oh, really? Because I built a lot of cars and been successful at it. Oh, you still suck. I've never done anything like that. You guys notice that? You guys have that in life? All the naysayers? Nothing but naysayers. So let's talk about the nature of naysayers. While I'm putting this water pump on this magical Porsche, equipped only with... Okay, Casey, calm down. So anyway, naysayers. I've done a lot of interesting things throughout my life, things that people would laugh at me for even thinking that I could do or would attempt or should attempt and been successful at. And people that have been naysayers and laughed at me have been anything from peers, younger people, older people, different generations, my own family. Oh, God. And that's troubling because when you've got people that you care about or you value their opinion and they just say, oh, you're not going to succeed, you can't possibly, that's never going to work. Well, then you have to have the inner strength and confidence to look at why you think it will. And do you have the intelligence, resources, and abilities to see it through? Do you have the right mindset to see something through? And if you've got all those things, you got the right mindset, the right determination, you can figure it out, you can read books, you can practice, you can do whatever you need, learn whatever skill you need to be successful at something, then the naysayers can go climb a tree. They don't know. And frankly, in my experience, people that say, without thinking about it or knowing the circumstance, that you will either succeed or fail at something, they're not actually giving you any valuable information. Because they don't know the facts. The only thing they know is that they would succeed or fail in that circumstance. So think about that when people are telling you things and their opinion about how you're going to do or not do. And if they don't have all the facts, and they rarely ever do, and they're actually being impartial and they're not biased by emotion or something, then they're just telling you about themselves. And I think that's important. Many of the greatest successes I've ever had and the most life-fulfilling and affirming experiences I've had, people that are close to me say this terrible idea, they'd never do it. Well, I feel sorry for those people because I know their lives were not as successful and not as fulfilling. And I don't think those people are watching, but if they are, you know who you are. But you still, as a young person out there, have to keep yourself in check and always analyzing every single situation as well yourself. Because you can't just go out there with idiot bravado and be successful. If you just go out there with that, your success will only come from luck. And I don't like leaving things to luck. But I'm concerned that I have an extra nut left over. Oh, geez. I've got an extra nut. That's the secret to success. Whoa. Okay, where did that come from and why do I have that? Also, I need to put that little bracket back on. Oh, God. Why do I talk on the internet? Oh, God. Okay, peasants, I'm going to torque this down. Now, I do not know what the factory torque is for these things whatsoever. So why am I just willy-nilly going for it? Well, it's because I'm not an idiot. Now, what does that mean? Okay, what it means to me is, first thing we're going to do is we're going to gently torque all of these to approximately the same reasonable torque, a medium torque. Now, what do I mean by that? So I can see what the threads are and how big these things are. They're rather fine threads. And they go into aluminum, which is pretty soft. So they can only be torqued so much. And that's sort of it. I'm not holding a hand here, I'm holding it here, real tight like this. And that way I can put the pressure kind of in my pinky finger, and I can't put more than a certain amount of torque on this anyway. Also, because effectively I'm using a different, it's quick leverage. Do you know what I'm saying? This is the equivalent of like putting your car in 5th gear. You can't put that much torque to the wheels. This is the equivalent of putting your car in 1st gear. You can put a lot of torque to the wheels, but you can't do it fast. So, in that circumstance, if I don't want to put a lot of torque in, and I want to get them even, I'm going to just put it in a tall gear here, like this, so to speak, where I can only put in a minimum amount of torque. And also, it's a lot of pressure on my hand, which I can get the feedback from in the feel, and it's easy for me to bring them all in to a similar setting. So that's how I do it. And the truth be told, that's how most good mechanics do it. Nobody torques these things, okay? You just don't. You feel it over time. You have to have a good seat of the pants feel for the materials you're working with. Those are the things that no one teaches anybody. Okay, now here it's hard for me to get my hand in, so I'm just using my thumb here. So it's like, okay, if I'm sticking my car in 1st gear and I don't want much torque, then I'm going to make sure it's only firing on 1 cylinder. Does that make sense? So I got a 5-cylinder engine here. I'm going with 1 cylinder, the big one. Make sense? So I'm doing it evenly, snugging them all down. That one's nice and snug. Snug. These are on studs. I can torque them in a little bit of a different manner. Okay, it's going well. I feel good about this. I don't have to tighten the bejesus out of it. You just want it to be snug, real snug. Have them all even. I sure as heck don't want to strip it out and have to take it all apart and helicoil it. That's a drag. Also, another thing, do y'all know that helicoils are stronger than the original threads are? In fact, I don't know if this car does it, but there are some cars that a lot of their threads are helicoiled from the factory. They're stronger, it's better. So, just a fun fact for you guys. Now, I hope that this is sealed, and I need to stop because I don't want to go too far. Gosh, that is tricky. It's really, it baits you into wanting to go really far. But I'm afraid if I go more, it'll strip it. It's easy to torque. Like this one's pretty well seated. That one's pretty well seated. Seated. But that's when you do it. You know how like some bolts, like they just keep going a little bit and you're like, ooh. And you're like, gosh, I don't know if that's about seated or if it's like getting to where it wants to strip. And that's just, oh God, stripping threads are the worst. The worst. Okay. Also, my extra nut went right here. I don't know what this is for. I don't know if it's necessary. There's probably a bracket or something. And it's potentially not even used on this car. So I am taking this off. Maybe. Theoretically. Come off of there, you. There it is. Okay. So next thing, I got to take the thermostat out of the old one. And I think it's just fine, so we'll use it again. Okay, really important thing, guys. Snap ring pliers, you need a pair of good ones. Okay, these are really nice because you can flip them over and it immediately goes from spreading it to squeezing it together just with a flick of a switch. This isn't some junk kit, these cheap kits that you get. And also, the tips here are replaceable. You can even put ones on with a 90 degree. So when you break them, you can put in new ones. So get yourself a good pair of these, spend a little more money, try to find them even if nobody locally has them, because when you need them to work, you need them to work. All right, so here we go. Get out the snap ring, there it is, no problem. Set it down nicely. And what do you know, there's the thermostat. It's not even a big deal. Not even a big deal. All right, we've got a rag around here. Now, I should have done this before I put that water pump on, but I didn't. So I'm just wiping this off, getting some of the goo off and whatnot. But this should be totally reusable. If you want to be a freak about it, you can put it in some boiling water. See, this gasket got a little off to the side. Truthfully, it's not that insanely important, this gasket here, because even if water got by a little bit, it's not going to matter. It's really not going to matter. We're talking like a microscopic amount of water. All this does is, as you guys know, it opens up when the engine gets to a certain temperature. It helps the engine warm up faster and then stay cooler and keep it at the right temperature quicker. It's all about efficiencies. But you do want that gasket to have it sit in there properly. But I don't see anything about this thermostat that scares, oh God, I'm an idiot. I'm a freaking idiot. I really should have put that in there first because I can't get these pliers in there first. Oh, Casey, you're an idiot. Yeah, I am an idiot. I should have thought of that. I didn't. I was being cocky. That's what you get for being cocky. Fortunately, I'm so good that I can get away when I make a mistake for cocky, which doesn't help my cockiness. I'm like 3 levels of cocky. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stick this in there, and fortunately this is going in, so I'm gonna push it in with my hands. Ooh, that's a stiff one, that's gonna be hard. I'm gonna work it in there and push it in there, and it'll be fine. Don't learn from my 3 levels of cockiness, people. All right, what do we got? Here we go. Gosh, Casey's being really real today. Yeah, well, duh. All right, here we go. So I'm gonna try to put it in like that first and then push it here. These should spread together and just snap right in place. You're not gonna be able to see it. I think this will work. It might not. I might hate my life. Okay, let's all watch Casey struggle. Here we go. This is gonna make for great internet. Oh, yes. This is what you guys paid for. Ooh, that's gonna be a bastard. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, all right, we're getting there. We are getting there. I'm gonna use my Swiss Army knife. How did the Swiss feel about the Germans? Ooh, I don't know. It depends on how old they are. Wow, that is not easy. Watch Casey struggle, children. This is what you get for not doing it in the right order and thinking ahead and being 1 level of cocky. Oh yeah. Turn that, don't smash it on your fingers. You'll have to bleep it out. That requires more editing. Wait, did I get it? Oh, what do you know? So I believe it's snapped in place, but oftentimes you're mistaken based upon your hearing cues and your feeling cues. So a lot of times when I'm working on like this, if people aren't accustomed to being around mechanics and mechanics are like, shut up, it's because they actually need to hear what they're doing carefully. Okay, so that almost is in place. Okay, so it's starting to snap in, but it's not totally snapped in yet. And that's why you need to have a mirror so you can double check your 3 levels of cockiness. Okay. Because that wouldn't work. That would potentially, I mean, I'd potentially work because it's jammed in there. Ooh, that was a healthy snap. And there you so-and-so. You know, there's another thing I gotta say, and this is potentially good truth. Those commercials for like, I think Pennzoil had one, or Valvoline back in the day. They're like, real mechanics only do the best things on their cars. The best service, the best products, the best oils, best tool. Horse crap. Real mechanics know what they can get away with and not afraid to experiment on their own cars. So they're maintained perfectly where they need to be. And oftentimes they end up being, well, like this. It's just what gives you comfort at night. You think it's done in some mysterious Formula One car garage by somebody with these magic tools that are all polished, that when you bump them or take them out, it makes the sound of a sword in a movie going swing? No. It's guys that know how to get the job done. Sorry to break it to you. Okay. That worked. All right, so water pump's on. Now it's time for the cam housing. Next scene. Okay, you guys, this video's gone on long enough, so come back next time. We're gonna put the cam housing on and keep it rolling. But today we got the water pump on the Porsche 944, that crazy mysterious service that no real person can easily do. But we just showed that you can. So, as always, I hope that you will like, comment, and of course subscribe. See you guys next time.